Hey folks, this clip is brought to you by the fastest growing sports book in Tennessee, ZenSports. Enter code A to Z TN, ATOZ TN to earn a welcome bonus that gives you 5% cash back on your total betting volume for your first 15 days of betting. That is ZenSports. Elias, how hilarious would it be for Lane to be responsible for putting Tennessee in control of its own destiny? That would really be something, wouldn't it? That would be great. Big shout out to Lane if he did that. Maybe would that make up for 2009? Let's start there. Would it make up for 2009 if Lane gave Tennessee the ability to beat Georgia, make it to the SEC's championship game?
Only if Tennessee sees it through and actually
agreed.
beat Missouri and Georgia. Otherwise, it's just gonna be like, oh God, now I have to listen to how Lane Kiffin beat Kirby Smart. Especially if Tennessee loses to Georgia. So
yeah,
we have to see how it all plays out before we can make up for that debacle.
Exactly. Oh, okay. So Brent earlier, where he said he called out from work to listen to us, he actually says he has strep throat, so he called out for the strep throat. Okay, that's much more sensible. I was like, please don't let us lose you money by calling out.
Yeah, I'd rather go to work than have strep throat, especially as an adult. That's no fun.
That sucks. Sorry to hear that, Brent. But he says listening live has been the best part of the day for sure. Really appreciate it. Great comments so far tonight from everybody. Well, let's get into this. Missouri and Eli Drinkowitz, as I love to refer to him as. They're a pretty good football team. They got a pretty nice offense. Defense is a little more suspect, but they are out there. And they're at this point 8-2, I think. Or no, they have 7-2. 7-2.
Yeah.
And you got to go to Columbia, Missouri. Not a place that's known as a real powerful environment or one that's like incredibly hard to win in. In fact, Josh Heupel has already won in Columbia, Missouri in his career at Tennessee. But obviously this is going to be a much more jazzed up version of Columbia than you've had in recent years. They have stunk out loud in the past few seasons, and now they're pretty decent. So this is not going to be a walk in the park. Probably not going to win. What was it last year? 66-35 or whatever it was last year.
20. I think they only scored like 20 something. Yeah, it was a pretty. It was like close in the first half there for a little bit before Tennessee pulled away.
Yes, I remember that.
That's another game. We talked a lot about the South Carolina. Did South Carolina have Tennessee signals last season? That Missouri game is another possibility there for that conspiracy theory because that was after the Kentucky game. Who knows, what goes into all that, but not really, wins are wins, losses are losses, whatever with all that stuff. But that is one of those games that could have been affected by that whole scandal that's still ongoing, crazy stuff still coming out about all that.
Yeah, hopefully all the details come out. That was one of the funniest things because they said that Connor Stallions, he resigned and he said that he hopes he just resigned and walked away, and then he hopes Michigan wins the national title this year, and he wishes them the best. It's like, man, that is I hope to be as loyal to something someday as Connor Stallions is to Michigan football, man.
Somebody make that dude mad so he can write a book or something.
Yeah, we need to know the details. Let's see the manifesto. But this interesting question, and maybe a place to start here from Brittany says, do y'all feel like Heupel just has Mizzou and Goofball Drinkwitz's number? Or maybe it's just a personal game for him. Obviously, there's history there with Heupel. He coached at Mizzou with that wasn't with Pinkel. That was with the last
Barry Odom.
Yeah, Barry Odom. And obviously had a really great offense there with Drew Lock, and an offense that kicked the absolute hell out of Tennessee in whatever year that was. Yeah. Oh boy, what a year that was.
Scored a bunch of points in 2016 too.
Yeah.
And when Tennessee still had something to play for, I think that year. I think that game was like something crazy, like 60-30 something as well.
Yeah, I remember that, and so there's history there. Maybe it is personal. Maybe he's got a little chip on his shoulder. Maybe with Drinkowitz, maybe it's kind of like a Beamer situation where they've just been compared a lot because they were in a similar.
Yeah.
Drinkowitz was a year before.
Yeah, I think Drinkowitz lost to Pruitt in 2020.
But regardless, they're kind of in that same like, oh, it's his fourth year, Heupel's third year, how they stack up, yada yada yada, that kind of thing. So maybe it's personal there, but there's, take all of that away. There's a ton to play for here anyway. Because the truth of the matter is this: you beat Missouri and you lose to Georgia, you're probably looking at like a Citrus Bowl. You beat Missouri, you beat Georgia, you're probably looking at a BCS, whatever, the New Year's Six level game. Or in this stupid scenario we just talked about, maybe you're looking at the SEC championship game, depending. And it's no, you wouldn't, because that would no, it would be 2 losses for Georgia. Sorry, yeah, that's right. If they lose to Ole Miss and lose to Tennessee, then Tennessee.
And that game's after, I believe. I think it's a night game at Athens, or 6:00 game. So Tennessee won't know the outcome of that game when they're playing against Missouri.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. As I said, I don't have high expectations there, but
I do think that comes into play too. I do think motivation. I mean, I'm big on that anyway. If you ever read anything I write, I'm huge on chip on your shoulder, edge, motivation, whatever it is to give you that little extra, in that game when it gets in the fourth quarter, to really push forward and to win that game, and to really have a reason to fight through it. Missouri no longer controls their own destiny. Like, they need a lot of help at this point. They need to beat Tennessee. I think they need Ole Miss to beat Georgia. Then they would also need Tennessee to beat Georgia. So there's a lot that would have to go right now, for even more that would have to go right for Missouri, I think, to win the SEC East. So they're kind of deflated. And Drinkwitz mentioned that after they lost to Georgia, about how, they kind of have to set some new goals now. So coming off that Georgia loss, how do they respond? I mean, they haven't really been in this situation before. They've been 5-7, 6-6, whatever the case, through the Drinkwitz era. They're not really accustomed to, okay, we can win the SEC East, to, okay, what now? They could still have a really good season. I mean, they're kind of in Tennessee shoes. They could still have an 11-win season, which I think really for Tennessee right now, that should be their main motivation, because they do control that. They don't control the SEC East, landscape and what happens with Georgia. But they can win 11 games, something that only, 2 years in a row with 11 wins, that only happened once during the Philip Fulmer era. It was a little different back then, because they only played 11 regular season games, so it wasn't possible to happen quite as often. But still, that's something that has not happened much at Tennessee ever, and that's very much still in place. I think for Tennessee, that's part of your motivation. And then, beating Missouri on the road, kind of shutting up some of that road talk, even though you won the game at Kentucky, that could really kind of put a dagger in that narrative as well, if you can go and win that game. So there's a lot of reasons for Tennessee to be up for this game.
Absolutely. And Shannon's point here said they spent a lot of fuel in the Georgia game. They stopped trying with 4 minutes on the clock. They were thinking about UT. Maybe. I think for sure, they got beat up far more than Tennessee did against UConn. You even saw in that game, it was which receiver it looked like he got injured in that game. Burden. Looked like he got injured initially, and we were texting about it, how huge it would be if Burden didn't play against Tennessee. But I think he ended up coming back and is probably fine, but maybe not 100%, maybe beat up. An interesting point from Elias here. I hadn't looked at what PFF had to say about this, but he said Missouri has some interesting tendencies. Looking through PFF metrics, they rarely run to the right, and Brady Cook's PFF rating drops 25 points when he's blitzed. Obviously, we know that Tim Banks he is a lover of the blitz for sure, and Tennessee's pass rush has been powerful this season. And to me, that's where it all comes down to. I think Tennessee will probably be able to score in a way that's similar to the way that they did at Kentucky. It's going to be around 30 points. You're going to be, somewhere right in there, 30 to 38, like that range. I would guess maybe 28 to 38, somewhere in there. Hopefully they can crack that 30-point threshold. But it's, can you stop this offense from Missouri that is really powerful? I mean, the Brady Cook to Luther Burden connection is better than any quarterback wide receiver connection Tennessee has. And so, can you stop that? And the way that has to be stopped is not in your secondary. No offense to the secondary. We've covered this plenty. You just don't have the dudes back there. You just simply don't. They got to come in through the transfer portal or through your recruiting class, and they're not here yet. Maybe they are here and they're just too young. But you got to be able to stop them, and it has to come from the pass rush. It has to be living in the backfield all over Brady Cook and really making him uncomfortable. Can they do that? Yes, I think they can. Will they do that is obviously the primary question to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious that Tennessee's going to blitz and blitz a lot, especially with those numbers that Elias throws out there. I'm sure Tennessee's seeing all that stuff. They know the tendencies. Of course, the risk with that is you blitz, and if he's able to escape the pocket, bad things can happen then when you blitz and the quarterback like him that can make plays with his legs. So that's going to be kind of a cat and mouse battle there on how Tennessee and Tim Banks defends that. Do you spy him? There's a lot of different factors that go into making that decision and what you think the right call. Obviously, not having Kamal Haddon is going to show up a little bit in this game. I mean, Missouri's going to hit some plays. They're going to score some points. This isn't going to be a game where Tennessee's defense goes out there and just completely shuts them down. I mean, Georgia didn't completely shut them down either. You kind of have to limit the damage and hope that you can blitz Brady Cook and force him into some of those bad throws. We saw a couple of those throws against Georgia that he made. It was like, all right, did he panic there? What are you thinking on that? That's a terrible decision. You probably need a couple of those.
It's football season, and it's time to switch to ZenSports, the fastest-growing sports book in Tennessee, changing the bonus game with their cash rewards program. When you sign up for ZenSports with code A2ZTN, ATOZTN, earn a welcome bonus that gives you 5% cash back on your total betting volume for your first 15 days of betting. And if you have friends who bet on sports, share your ZenSports referral bonus code with them, and you will earn 3% of their betting volume for their first 6 months of betting on ZenSports with no cap on how much you can earn. So what are you waiting for? Stop wasting time and money on other sportsbooks when you could be earning real cash rewards with ZenSports. Download today on the App Store at zensports.com. And your wallet will thank you later. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. That is Zen's.
I tend to think Tennessee's offense will score some more points than you do. I think they could get close to that 40-point range just because I think this offense has evolved. You're starting to see, I don't know if it's the playbook opening up more or if it's just the offense becoming more comfortable with each other. We've talked about it before, how the Tennessee's play calls aren't necessarily traditional. Kind of taking what the defense gives them and its receivers and the quarterback being on the same page. Joe Milton and these receivers seem like they're on the same page more often. Moving Dante Thornton out wide has really helped that connection. You're starting to see him kind of find his groove. Score. I mean, that opens things up just for the rest of the offense entirely. And then obviously the running game. I mean, nobody's been able to stop Tennessee's running game. That's just the way the offense operates with the wide splits. Nobody really wants to commit to stopping it because they're so afraid of getting burnt. And then with the passing game kind of picking up these last couple of weeks and us seeing some of those deep shots get hit, I don't think they're going to sell out to try to stop the run. So Jalen Wright's probably going to have a big day. Dylan Sampson's probably going to have a big day. I mean, these 50, 60-yard rushing touchdowns are kind of like the touchdowns to Jalen Hyatt that we saw last season, where you can almost bank on one happening every single game. And I think we'll definitely see a couple of those, or at least one against Missouri. And those are just backbreakers. It's even more deflating, I feel like, than a passing touchdown in that situation. When you break off one of those big runs, it just fires up the offensive line. Everybody loves it. So I'm feeling fairly confident about this game. I know Missouri's good. They played Georgia close last year too. For some reason, they match up well against Kirby Smart, but this is such a completely different challenge for them. This Tennessee offense is nothing like the Georgia offense, and said defensively, Georgia hasn't been as good defensively this season as they were last season. I'm not going to say that Tennessee's defense is on Georgia's level to this point because Georgia just still does have a lot more talent. But, Tennessee's defense, that's like the number 17 or 18 scoring defense in the nation. So I think they'll be able to hold their own against this Missouri offense.
Yeah, I was looking through Tennessee at the moment. I think that I see that right. They have the number one rushing defense in the SEC at the moment. Yes. Rushing defense, Tennessee's allowing 97.33 yards per game. Georgia's allowing 100.33 yards per game. There's some to be said there about how, Tennessee can be thrown on. And so and also Tennessee's been ahead in a lot of its games. And so teams are throwing more than they're running the ball. there's a lot that goes into that. But either way, you have to win at the lines of scrimmage. That's true in every single football game that's ever played. And Tennessee can here. I don't know exactly how the crowd will factor into it, because you've seen, obviously, you
can't be worse than Kentucky's crowd.
Exactly. That's exactly my thought, because you really got affected in the Swamp. Then you go to Kentucky, and it's a decent environment. It's not great, but I think the game was like nearly sold out, if not sold out, and like it was pretty loud there in the old grocery store. And
like the crowd at Alabama's not why Tennessee lost that game.
They
handled it pretty well early.
Exactly. You had a 2-touchdown lead at the half at Alabama, and then things came flying off the tracks for some reason. But they've been up and down in playing in road environments, but your last road environment, you did well. You won the game. And Missouri is for sure better than Kentucky. Are they leaps and bounds better than Kentucky? I don't know. It's very different. Missouri plays a completely different style of football from Kentucky. And in that, I mean that, Missouri plays a winning style of football sometimes compared to the way that Kentucky plays. But the win is there. That is the conclusion that I've come to when I've looked at this. Brady Cook, receivers, excellent, specifically Luther Burden. The trenches are kind of a toss-up for me, but that's where the game has to be won. And can Tennessee do it? Yes. Will they do it? We'll see. And that's kind of the next segment. We're going to have to predict who's going to win this game. But before we do, anything else in terms of the preview for this one, Zach, before we get to the prediction?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Tennessee just kind of doesn't get too far in front of themselves thinking about Georgia and the rest of the season. Like, that's a game, that Georgia game. Obviously, you need to beat Missouri, but regardless of the SEC East, you drop those two games to Florida and Alabama, and those are heartbreakers and crushing because they were both winnable games, and you could have done something that the program hasn't done in a long time. But if you beat Georgia for the first time since 2016, especially if you beat them if they're coming off of winning against Ole Miss, and you're able to break that winning streak that goes back to the SEC championship game in 2021, I mean, that puts this season where it's not last season because of just all the, last season will always be special because it was the first season like that in so long. Mm-hmm. But it does put this season kind of where it stands alone as another one of those really special seasons where it didn't look like you were going to have that type of season early on, especially after you lost to Florida, especially after you struggled against Austin Peay. That game can really define this season. But that game is, November 18th. You got a long time to that game. You've got to win this game to really make that game special, because while it would still be special to beat Georgia and you get to 10 wins probably if you beat Georgia, and even if you lose to Missouri, there's just something about, finishing the season with an undefeated November that would really build a lot of momentum going into next season when you're hoping to really make some noise with Nico and some of these younger players that you're hoping can step up and play a big role. So it's a massive game. Like, I never thought that the Missouri game would be this big. Credit to Drinkwitz, as much crap as we've given him over the last couple of years. Credit to Missouri as well for kind of sticking with him. I mean, it's college football programs fire coaches way too fast. There are situations where it has to be done, but you're firing these guys and then you're going to this pool of coaches where you have nothing that's proven, and you're just kind of throwing another line out there and hoping that you get a guy that can come in and turn a program around and be a Kirby Smart or Nick Saban. And the problem with that is you can't go hire one of those guys and it's a for sure thing. You kind of hire one of those guys and you find out down the road that you have one. Kind of like what Tennessee's done with Josh Heupel, and he's still proving to be that guy and has to continue to build on what he's already done at Tennessee, but we never thought that he would be this type of guy. I never thought Kirby Smart would have the success that he's had at Georgia, and I don't think any of us thought Nick Saban was going to win that many national championships at Alabama. We knew he's a great coach from his time at LSU, but that kind of dominance for that long, I mean, college football programs usually dominate for like 4 years at a time, and then it's on to the next one. We saw it all through the 2000s until Saban kind of took over. So it's credit to Missouri for sticking with the guy and letting him kind of build his program. I think more programs should take that approach.